We actually know what we're doing, man.
Better than me in that case, yeah.
Okay, we call the meeting to order at 5:31. The system was not on, so I'm going to repeat how far we got. We went through the roll call. We have Stephen Day absent, Peter Van Goodlock present, Lucy Giacomino present, Joan Hanson excused, Ramiro Ross present, Lawrence Phillips present, Michael Norman unknown, Andy Heradic, staff liaison present, and there we are. And we have one call to the public here. We'll let him go ahead. You may,
Turn off the microphone?
if you want the microphone, yeah.
Why don't you just come and sit at the
No, 'cause he
table
doesn't
right
have
here?
He doesn't have a microphone.
Oh,
And he told us a little while ago that sometimes when he listens to it at home, there's no way of hearing or seeing
Oh.
correctly, so
Yeah,
the
but
microphone helps.
it takes a lot of time to listen to these meetings on the audio files, believe me.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to actually get exact wording of what you guys are saying, so.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, my name is Michael Gregory, and some of you know me from the past in Bisbee. Back in the 90s, for a while, I was Emergency Services Director for the county, in charge of writing the Hazardous Materials Action Plan.
I knew I recognized you from somewhere. I keep trying to figure out where it is. Thank you.
And then in the year 2000, I was actually the primary author of the vegetation management plan that the county has observed for, up until very recently, actually, the integrated pest management plan for the county, for the city. What I wanted to
Excuse me,
bring up
Michael,
to,
did you say the vegetation plan for county and city?
no, the vegetation management report we wrote back in the year 2000 for the city council. And that actually became the basis for vegetation management for the city for several years. And so, you know, it is, in fact, until very recently, it was what everybody was paying attention to.
Uh-huh.
So my concern is with that aspect of things. That's why I'm here. And I've been going through some of your minutes. I'm very much interested, of course, in the roads plan, the herbicide plan for the roads.
Uh-huh.
And I came across this in one of your meetings. Let me just read some of your own words back to you. The 30th of November, 2015, that meeting,
Yes.
you guys specified in the minutes, or in the reports, that there were concerns that had been brought forth, quote, about applicable material standards, adequacy of compaction equipment, crew size and crew qualifications, asphalt design mix, temperature controls, and compaction tests. In short, we're talking about quality control, right? And then it says it was decided that, quote, concerns brought forth will be reviewed and recommendations for remedies will be exercised accordingly. A, pavement cores will be taken. B, new pavements will be evaluated using the same data entry criteria used to establish pavement's condition for the original 2009 pavements need plan. Well, I've gone through a lot of your minutes, and I can't find that was ever done. And somebody recently asked Andy about it, and he said they weren't ever done. And I just wanted to ask you, how come?
Well, all that wasn't done were the core.
The core
Core
samples?
samples. But the other questions you had then were about the mix.
Well, it wasn't my question, it was your question.
No, but you brought them up. I mean, repeat them to me so I can.
Okay, yeah, it
Yeah.
said, the issues brought forth, concerns brought forth were applicable material standards.
We had questions about the material standards, and if you I think if you go back through those, one of our questions was the rock they were using in the hot mix.
Yeah, the size of the rock, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, it was the size of the rock. So what we did is we did verify through KE&G that they are using an ADOT, a certified ADOT mix, and
Okay.
and they are, and ADOT was there and said, yes, this is our mix standard. So they are using that mix standard for us.
Okay, all right, then the other thing was, the next thing was adequacy of compaction equipment and compaction tests.
We we had some questions about the compaction, and I have not done the compaction. What I did was, I've not done the actual tests. One of the things we were talking about in the compaction is we were worried about the size of the rollers that we got. But what we did determine is we were only doing 2-inch overlays. We were not putting in 3 and 4-inch actual road beds in. So we brought K&G and 2 other paving contractors out, and we looked at our process to make sure we were using the right equipment. And they did come to us and say, you guys are using exactly the right equipment. Now, I have not done the compaction tests. They're about $250 a test. We're not actually building new roads. We're just doing overlays.
Right.
So our compaction was, I just didn't spend the money on the compaction test, but we know that our compactors, our rollers are they're vibrating rollers, and they're the right size to do overlays. And that's what we keep talking about, is that we're not building new roads, we're just doing overlays. 1 to 2 inch overlays. In some cases, we do get to 3 inches. So
Okay.
there's a preset standard for the size of roller, for the depth of asphalt that you lay. And
Right.
I've always stayed under that because I don't want to get into trouble for building new roads, which I can't do. But I can do repair work on the road. So we have kept our overlays, 2 inches to 3 inches, the best overlay you can get for the size compactors that we have. And I don't go that deep very often.
Okay,
That's how we answered that one.
that answers that one,
Now,
right.
as far as the qualifications of the people that we have working for us, so what we did and what we had been doing, and now we're completed with it, with the first 2 phases of it, but we're sending our employees through the Asphalt Institute through LTAP, which is sponsored by ADOT. So we are, our employees are actually on a continued training class to finish the Asphalt Institute, which is.
Yeah, I remember you brought that up at a later meeting.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
and
they
we
were
are
doing,
now
right.
we're all through level 2, and we've got a few guys left to finish level 3.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
So that's how we did the training. for it.
Okay, then the other thing that you had talked about back in 15, 2 other things, asphalt design mix.
Yeah. The asphalt design mix came up because we really questioned, or the members of the committee very much questioned, that asphalt design mix. And that's, as I said earlier, so we went to K&G with ADOT and asked what the design mix standards were. K&G does have those. They mix their basic mix is an ADOT design mix. In fact, I will tell you that even just today, we went to talk about rubberized paving and that design mix with ADOT, and I met with K&G and ADOT this morning. So we met with K&G and ADOT. They agreed that they have the design standards for the mix. We were concerned about the materials they were using. We thought that the pea gravel they were using, the rock, was not faceted enough. That was brought up by one of our members, who can give you a very good, quick tutorial on chip sealing and pea gravel. But as we discovered, that is the gravel that ADOT's using.
Okay,
I can't tell you that everybody on this committee thought that was the best gravel that ADOT should use, but that is what they're using.
and it's approved by.
And it's approved, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing, blah, 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 asphalt design, temperature controls, and I know you've addressed this later in some of the later meetings too.
Yeah, I tell you, the only temperature control I have with this asphalt is that it's so hot that it delays how we roll it.
Uh-huh.
But it comes in very, very hot, and our truck keeps it, and the trucks that, because it's such a short run, it's a 30-mile run on that asphalt, it gets delivered so hot that we
They mix it at Sierra Vista?
yeah, they mix it in Sierra Vista.
okay.
So when we get it, it's still,
Still kind of, yeah. right.
sometimes it's, the heat isn't a problem with that asphalt unless you're going down a hill. And it's like rolling pie dough on a hot countertop. And
Right.
it won't, it won't stick because it's just too hot. So our biggest challenge in rolling in Old Bisbee has been rolling on the hills with really hot asphalt.
I remember at another meeting, I think Peter talked about that as a problem on Higgins Hill, was it? Or on one of those over there where the Bermuda was coming up?
Yeah,
and it
yeah. I
has-
mean, it really, it's tough to roll on those hills.
Right.
And I didn't get the big rollers. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because the little ones slide down the hill. But the big ones would. The big ones, I didn't get the big roller, and the chairman said, "Andy, why aren't you getting a big roller? All the streets aren't hills in Bisbee." And
Right.
he's right. And I'm going to be at a point here where I'm going to have to rent or get a bigger roller, because when we get to the terraces, we may be putting something thicker down. So we're talking about that amongst us at streets right now, but
Okay. And then the other thing, as I said, the committee had decided that the concerns would be brought forth, they'll be reviewed, recommendations for remedies will be exercised. Again, I don't think that ever happened, but the cores were one thing. But then the other one was new pavements will be evaluated using the same criteria that we used in 2009. I've never seen, at least in the committee meetings, that those evaluations ever came up before the committee.
so what the committee does is they walk the jobs after we're done.
Uh-huh.
And then, and they look at it and they eye it, they give an evaluation. That is normally discussed at our pre-meetings when we set the agenda. So if we need to, we can talk about that more at the meetings, but what we do is when we set our agenda, we have a pre-meeting, and it's just with 2 members, so we're not in any violation of any meeting rules.
Right.
And we discuss a lot of those details at that pre-meeting, and perhaps we need to, because, it's not, we do talk about that frequently, but we just don't do it at this particular meeting.
We try to stick to the, go
Yeah,
ahead, Peter.
on the issue of the evaluation of the new pavements according to the old criteria, I have to get a little bit more concerned on that, because it's a new pavement, and if it's a new surface, and it has met all the other previous considerations, why would we go along according to the old criteria? Do you remember the old criteria?
No, I'm not familiar with them.
Uh,
This is pre-MAG standards, you mean?
No, the old criteria of condition of streets.
No, I don't know that one at all.
Okay? We had a criteria based on a scale of 1 through 5, 1 being excellent and 5 being failed.
Okay.
And it was color coded. This is not the color code copy here, but we do have one, and we're going to compare this color code copy to where we are today.
Uh-huh.
In the evaluation issue of the new pavements, obviously, let me give you an example. The codes here, ACs is alligator cracking, block cracking, and all that. Since we don't have all that on new pavements, the issue of a evaluation is not on the condition of the pavement, but it's on the condition of how the pavement and the product and the aggregate and the rolling and everything turns out. That's the evaluation that city staff is doing now, and the fact, as far as the committee goes, I'll be honest, if it's a new pavement, just like Arizona Street, why would I consider evaluating any more other than walking on it, riding on it? No cracks, no alligators, no none of the other criteria.
Okay. Of course, the cracks are one of the big issues with the herbicide stuff, right?
That is true, but that's the old pavements.
I see.
And you address the new pavements.
Okay.
Yeah, that criteria part of this was, you're right, what you think. The criteria part of that's interesting because this committee did a Paris study with ADOT,
Right.
and what they did is they photographed every sidewalk, every staircase and street and bridge in the city. So we took that criteria to determine how we would move forward with chip sealing originally. But we're not chip sealing, we're paving.
Right.
But that was the criteria that we were looking at. We're looking at the old roads, and that criteria helped us decide how to move forward. As it turns out, we did change that a little bit because the asphalt came in less expensive than the chip seal, and the sales tax money came in large enough that we could now go to a neighborhood where we had a huge number of failed roads based on the criteria from the study. But what we did differently is we originally were just going to chip seal a couple roads a year. What we did is we took that criteria, we went to the neighborhoods where the roads were worst, and then we paved the whole neighborhood,
Right.
not just, because in that neighborhood, there could have been 3 failed roads and 1 satisfactory road. But that satisfactory road wasn't necessarily rated good or excellent, it was still a damaged road. So
Right.
we paved all those roads. The roads, with that criteria, the roads we haven't paved, it's interesting, newer chip seal roads within the last 5 years, we're not paving right now or doing overlays on.
Right.
So based on the on that criteria, what we'll be doing next is figuring out is if we re-chip seal those roads or do oil seals on them, the fogs on them. Because we didn't want to pave those just for the sake of paving them. We wanted to get to the roads that were rated worst first.
Yeah.
So that's that, when we talk about the criteria, it was that was about the condition of the existing roads,
Okay.
not the ones that we.
So you just mentioned that you're looking at these new rubberized material.
Yeah, yeah. I met with ADOT today because, I mean, it's a little off here, but we've got to decide what we're going to do with Bisbee Road and Naco Highway. So the rubberized paving may be a solution for one of those roads. It probably won't work on Bisbee Road. Bisbee Road is a failed road as we sit here. On 1 to 50, we had Tony Paez come down from Pima County, retired as the transportation director, and he gave our road a 6 out of 50. So it is already a failed road. So you know we're going to have to come back to this because now we have to decide how we handle that $1 million road without having $1 million to do it.
Right.
And the problem with that road is that it is no longer a repair. That will be a new road. And we're really talking about this and how we handle Bisbee
Well,
Road. But the rubberized will work on Naco Highway and give us another 10 years. But I haven't brought that up with the committee
No,
yet, and
not
haven't
yet.
discussed the
We haven't
details
gone
of it
to
yet.
that,
Nor have I seen the product. It is an ADOT product. And the beauty of that product is it only has to go down in 1 inch. It's a 1 inch overlay, which I can tell you, when somebody tells me 1 inch overlay, I'm running the other way, thinking it ain't gonna work. But it's a new product, and we're gonna have to find out. It doesn't, we know the turning radiuses chew up rubberized
And
asphalt,
I
but
think Larry had a comment here on that.
Well, all I want to tell our guest here is that when we switched our method of operation from IGA with the county and their macadam double chip seal and went to paving our own, we did change our method of operation.
Yeah.
And when we first started, we had to, this is like a shakedown cruise, we had to get our crew going, get our equipment figured out, and we keep on. So at that time, we had real hands-on, almost every day quality control in the field. We were watching, observing, making notes, making observations. Since that time, we've gotten better. The committee hasn't had to be that involved because everybody's getting better. We got with KE&G has been completely cooperative, about our concern over the aggregate mixes and everything, and they've been very helpful, doing things that a lot of contractors wouldn't do without getting paid for it.
Okay.
So we're lucky there. And so, it's a continual ongoing thing. We do have pretty strict quality control. I mean, somebody's out there pretty much all the time.
Got a comment over here from Lucci?
Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Andy, what size of pea gravel are you using on the roads?
Lucci, I've got the sample upstairs, but it's labeled on the sample. I can't even tell you. What I did was I went out to. It's been a couple years now. I went out to the plant with KE&G and ADOT. We scooped up a piece of the aggregate, and the ADOT engineer wrote on the lid what the size was and that it met the ADOT standard. But Lucci, it's a little piece of pea gravel. Now,
Is it pea gravel or is it?
it's not pea gravel. It's not. I'm calling it pea gravel, Peter, because most people know that little gravel's pea gravel, but it's bigger than pea gravel.
It's crushed though.
It's crushed, yeah.
Let's not digress here. We're addressing our guest here. We're hosting our guest here that has on the call to the public, so we're not gonna digress on that. If we wanna know more about the specifications on the gravel and everything else, we can take it up directly with what Public Works has available for us to
Right.
review.
I understand that. And I don't want to take up all your time either, Tito. Let me ask one more question, though,
Sure.
which relates to the committee procedure. Again, thank you for getting the minutes up on the web. They weren't up there until last week. On the meeting of the 27th of October last year, there are, under new business, you were discussing the committee's future. And it says in the minutes that Stephen Day proposed that a plan be developed for vegetation control for recently paved streets where grass and weeds, it says weeks, but we know it was weeds, and other vegetation is already growing through and encroaching on the roadways, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The committee will attempt to have a February 2017 presentation to the city council, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I've listened to both the video and the audio of that meeting. Stephen Day did not make any such presentation
What's that? In February?
in
No.
October.
No, he didn't make it in October.
Well, it says in the minutes that he did, so, again, that's a,
No,
that's
what
a,
we did it as we went along. Because we had to make sure that what Steve Day was going to be appropriate for the objective that we were trying to get at.
right,
So he was building his presentation. Now, it almost sounds like you want to hold our feet to the fire according to the minutes, which is okay, which is fine. Because if we didn't have this kind of critique at times, we would be doing our thing and not what some of the other people feel we should be doing.
right, I understand.
You know how that works.
Right, right.
Okay? So what?
I mean, I'm on both sides of it. Sometimes I'm in your position, sometimes I'm a member of the public, right?
Yes, absolutely, you're right, you're absolutely right. So it wasn't until, I think it was, that presentation did not really gel until May, was it? 'Cause
Right,
we had
right.
the-
When you went to the joint meeting, the joint work session.
We went to the joint work session, and we worked out as to, because there was a feeling that we weren't getting to where we wanted to be as far as the presentation goes, as to what the proposal was going to be. So we met at one of the joint meetings with the Sustainability Committee. And with their help and our help and Steve's presentation, we went forward to the point that there was a sample, there was an ordinance built around Steve Day's presentation.
Right,
Okay. And there was supposed to be an approval sometime in June, which never came about
Right.
because the public says, give us a chance to participate.
right.
And Andy, isn't there supposed to be a presentation on that report and the city staff and public participation this next month?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so when Steve Day worked on that presentation, he basically sat at the table and read through it, and we commented as he read
Yes.
through it. So we didn't do a stand-up sort of public presentation, we just sort of did a.
Well,
get it
again,
out.
though, Andy, at that meeting, that did not happen.
No,
No, that's true, it didn't, because he wasn't ready. When we sat down with him and talked to him and he went through it, we said, he's not ready to do the presentation. It was just not, it wasn't right, so. Since then, the public came to us and asked us to wait. We agreed to wait, and we have set up test plots over between Mornings Cafe and Legal Aid on a piece of asphalt I put down. What we're really looking for in the test plot, and where our real problem is edge of road. We didn't have grass coming up in our old roads, so it's not coming up in the new roads. It's only coming up where it already existed if we couldn't get it out. So it's the edge of road and the areas on the right of way where people have asked us to pave for their driveways, or if someone said, we have people come to us and go, I'm 80 years old and I can't get out of my car, I slip, fine. We'll do the right of way in front of your house. We're using your money to pave, it doesn't matter to me. But we say to them every time, if I pave over this, you're gonna have a grass problem with this asphalt. I'm not treating it, and we'll say to people, if there's a grass problem here, you're gonna have to spray it. We don't spray. But we're not necessarily having a huge grass problem in the middle of our roadways. Bisbee Road has a grass problem. Highway 92 has a grass problem.
Right. And Highway 80 at one
And
point.
Highway 80 has, But those are all those are, in those roads, it's at the gutter, where the asphalt meets the gutter pan. But we're not necessarily seeing, and Lucci would know actually better than, or as well as anybody here, because she puts on more miles a week than police officers. So I would know if it was coming up in the middle of the road. But I'm not saying there aren't some places where that could happen, it could, but most of our issue is edge of road. So when we laid the pavement over here for the test sample, I made sure that I laid a 2-inch overlay on dirt that we had scraped. We knew there was grass there. We took the backhoe, we scraped it out. We put we put a little AB down, we compacted it, we put down our 2.5 inches of asphalt, compacted it, and then drove away and waited for the grass to come up. Well, of course it did.
Right.
But I needed a test site that would be closer to what we were testing, and that's edge of road or those places where we've put new asphalt, say to connect the road to someone's driveway. And that's where our issue lies with
Okay.
most of the grass coming up.
Okay, well, just to summarize, what I was trying to get at, you guys have complained forever about the public not coming in.
Oh, yeah, Neil says
Okay.
it every meeting.
And so some of the public, and myself included, because of the herbicide issue, started paying attention, okay?
Well, that's
And
good.
so we're looking at the
Please.
past, we're looking at the minutes and so forth and so on. Something like saying that Stephen Day did this at such and such a meeting when he really didn't is really disconcerting, not to mention misleading when the public's trying to figure out what happened when. Okay?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to maybe go back in and make a correction, an amendment, or something on that meeting and say blah, 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 but I just thought I would bring it up that we found it really, funny that he didn't say it and you said he did.
Well, let me,
But
No,
did you
no.
listen to the actual meeting?
Oh, yeah. And by the way, that's excruciating.
Yeah, exactly. We have been here for him. So at that meeting, did Stephen not talk about,
Said hardly a word about it.
we have the wrong date or something on that meeting? We'll have to
That
go back
might
and
be.
get
I
it
mean, I've
straightened
listened to
out.
most of the meetings now, and I've never heard him make that presentation.
Because he did stand here at a meeting, and we made him stand up there and make the presentation for us at a meeting.
Okay.
And
But
then
it
we,
wasn't the October meeting.
no, I don't think it was, and then we made him sit down here
Okay.
and we hashed it out with
Well,
him.
that's what I was wondering, if maybe it got hooked up to the wrong meeting, or, and here's another issue I mentioned a minute ago, but I'll
Yeah.
make it more explicit. Some of your meetings, you have no audio or video for. The public cannot find out what one of those meetings at all.
Yeah, there's been an issue with the recording system, and they think they've got all that worked out.
Uh-huh.
And we weren't the only one, but yeah,
Right.
we had a,
No, address it correctly. On that, no audio, no video, okay? I'll address that one
Yeah,
for you, Mike.
yeah.
Okay.
And, the reason why I choose to address it and everything else is because it has to do with the minutes, okay? I went and I did a little bit of work because I myself, when I'm at home trying to listen to city council, I can't because my screen is blank. I investigated a little bit. I'm gonna take a little bit of time to explain. I investigated a little bit with Channel 2, because I'm on Cable 1, on Channel 2. And Channel 2 says we have nothing to do with that. It says it's all controlled and done at City Hall, okay? So I says, fine, good and well, because all they do is take the signal from here and pipe it through whatever instrumentation they've got over there, electronics, and then they put it into the airwaves or over the cable for us.
Right.
So I was concerned because we've been lacking in minutes on the premise that we have the recording, we have the video, and the issue of actual written minutes has become an issue among some of us as to if we've got this much, why do we need to have an actual written piece of paper when we have the new information technology available? Okay, as is, we'll see. You're the first one that has come to us and addressed that particular issue, which still remains an issue and will remain an issue for some time. Because come to find out that the recording and the video, the manner in which it's handled is that the voice portion of it is forwarded to the staff. at least, I don't know how many committees work this way or whatever, but at least in our committee, the voice portion is forwarded to staff. And I don't know, and I inquired whether or not city was going to improve this system to have better recordings and better video. And I am, as of to this afternoon, this evening, because these are limited mics unless we get up there, we don't have any money to buy more equipment. That's the answer I'm getting. Okay. So once the recording of the, is sent forward to the staff, I also inquired whether the city had a central stenographic where they could take the voice recording of that presentation and transfer to anything else if somebody wanted it. Mhm. I think you brought it up here a few minutes ago.
Right.
See? But there is no such thing, okay?
Right.
So it's now that we have, and that we're going to address the issue as to how do we get minutes if we want written minutes in paper form, okay? With, you're the first one that has proven that information technology is available, is working when people want to use that. I appreciate that very much.
As long as the recording actually happens.
Yeah, yeah. But you see the limitation.
Right.
I think
And
I
I
addressed
actually
the
understand
limitation.
from the city, Tito, that they are working on it, and there is new technology, which may go online pretty quick.
Good.
And, but as far as one other thing, then I'll let you guys get back to your business and get
Sure.
off of here. I'm taking up too much of your time. But as far as the written goes, please don't get rid of that and just leave it to the audio and the video. Because if you want to see what happened quickly, you want a synopsis. And the minutes are much, much better than an action agenda or anything, if the minutes are in fact done right. You can look at those in less than 5 minutes. It takes an hour or more to listen to the audio, right?
Right.
So again, thank you very much for taking concern with my questions.
Before you leave, you seem to have had a good, you seem to have had a very good interest in here in the questions and answers and everything else. But you piqued my interest to see as to, and then you went on in part of your comments is sometimes you're on that side in the public, sometimes you're over here, which we appreciate you being on both sides. As I said, without good criticism, we don't get good results. Okay? So we don't take anything, but I'm curious as to where do we go, if you have a suggestion, where do we go from here based on some of the questions that you have? Because if you see on our agenda for today, we still have it didn't show up, yeah, and under old business, vegetation encroachment control update.
Right.
Andy gave a little bit of a review, which is, that's what we were gonna talk about, because basically, up until that report comes up, I don't know that we have a handle on it, but we did get severely meaning staff and council and committee, we did very severely got criticized because we weren't doing things right. I don't know if you were aware of that. or whether
No,
you
that's
caught
new
on it.
information for me.
But that came across very strong in some instances. And I, for one, personally, I try to help one of the citizens in trying to ferret out some of the concerns, but we didn't get anywhere because we came to an impasse as to the question that was at hand, whether we did things right or not. Okay? So,
Well, Tito, again, I don't know exactly how to answer that. I mean, it can be, I mean, I could go on for hours about public right to know.
Yeah.
And I spent 20 years of my life in that field. But you're going into the audios, you've got the videos, that technology is there, that can be improved. That's not your problem, like you said, that's something the city has got to come up with. The minutes, as I mentioned, I would think the minutes have to be much more detailed than the ones you've done. Because when you look at those, or you look at the action agendas, that is when the public looks at those, they don't really learn anything. They learn what you made a recommendation on, and that's it. They are so bare bones, there's no real information there. The real stuff that you guys do is like in these conversations we're having right now, or that you have amongst yourselves, or in the meetings you're having two-on-one that aren't recorded at all. That's where the real information the public needs is. Because the public wants to know how you came up with this decision you made. You tell them what the decision was, but they don't see how it got there.
I'm going to hand this over to Andy because he's the one that receives most of the feedback from the public.
Right.
We really don't, because I think you may be, which number is he? Call to the public, number 5 in the, since 2009,
Can I,
We haven't had 5.
calls to the public.
okay,
I don't
can,
think we've had
can,
5, have we, Tito?
I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yeah,
ask
yes,
a
go ahead,
question
please.
of our friend here? Okay, well, on the minutes, no one here at this table is qualified to write minutes. Do you have any suggestion on how we could get a minute writer here at these meetings?
The only way I ever was able to do it was to get somebody hired.
Well,
And I know that,
there's
you know,
no money for that.
I understand.
So unless
Now,
somebody-
Andy, I mean, that falls in Andy's bailiwick, right?
Okay, well, no, if somebody would care to volunteer
Right.
from the group of concerned people that you seem to represent, we would appreciate a little help.
No, Larry, I only represent myself.
Okay, well,
I'm just a member of the public.
okay.
So we are looking at, so, this is not, I don't have a solid solution here, but I can tell you what the current talk is about this. We're concerned about it at the city too, because what's happened is that I have 5 committees and commissions. We have so many committees and commissions that we're now, for the first time in the city's history, the deputy city clerk is taking committees and commissions. There aren't enough of us.
No.
There are no department heads left to take, to do these meetings. We've eliminated all that mid-level staff. But we are looking, we've gone to bid for new IT services, and one of the things that we're asking for is, there is now municipal software available to municipalities that does exactly what you're talking about. It transcribes it out.
Exactly,
And we don't
that's
have
right.
to sit there and do it, or go through our notes, or
Right.
5 committees I had last week that we're doing abbreviated notes for.
Yeah.
So our goal is the same as yours, is to get more information out.
Yeah, I
So
was
that's-
actually, that was gonna be my next point, that there is transcription.
That's right, so we are.
Our
gonna be
software.
looking- Yeah,
now.
we're looking into that software, I want you to know, and it's gonna, we're gonna have to pay for it, because that's gonna be cheaper than putting more people on staff, which we just
Right.
don't have the money to do.
The other alternative, of course, is a public information officer, and that costs bucks.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Do you have any more?
That takes care of me. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
But I'm going to make a, how would I say it, a request, a plea. Since you've been here so instrumental in pointing so many of these things out to us, I'm going to ask that you continue to participate with us and look forward to see whether or not we have the ability of this new IT information technology that transcribes for us, so that you will get a better product, not only from us, the committee, but also from the staff and all the cities and commissions that go on.
I promise I will pay attention to what comes down, okay?
Thank you very much. Can't
all I
ask for
can
anything
promise.
more.
Well, we can ask, but we're not getting it. We're trying to drag him on the committee, he's not coming, so I know what you're doing there, Tito.
Oh,
But
okay.
anyway,
Thank you again.
thank you.
Okay, well, don't leave, stick around and
I want to hear what you got to say about vegetation.
come up to the table.
I'll sit back here, that's okay. I don't
Okay.
want to get, word in that much.
Oh, that's all right.
I like
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, hey, don't volunteer yet, Lucio. Okay, we got through the call to the public, and then we have the approval of the minutes. The May 31st minutes, the only thing that we got is the, let me read it here and see if there's any need to review what was written for us. Call to the public, I don't think we had anybody there on May. We welcome new member Frank Cabello in the Streets and Infrastructure Committee. No action. Cabello was welcomed in the committee as a member. Review financials, which we do at every meeting. Don't know, our guest here, if we have a copy for him, we'd like for him to take a look at it. No action on financials. Financials were reviewed and discussed. Discussion and possible approval to postpone meetings for July and August, which we did. It was approved to postpone until September, which is today. And old business, refine the language, graphics, and structures of the vegetation control PowerPoint to be presented to mayor and council for approval on June 20th, 2017. No action, language, graphics, and structure discussed. That has not taken place, but that's what we were supposed to do or have done. All I know is that, no, wait a minute. Am I wrong on that? There was a presentation made, which ensued and it went forward as the ordinance. Someplace I have a copy of it, but not at right in front of me. Number 2, under new business or old business is, discussion and possible approval to review a potential amendment to the city's herbicide policy with possible vote to recommend that the mayor and city council amend this policy. There was no action. I'm looking at Mr. Gregory over there, who says that he wrote a management, that maybe he could maybe you can participate for us in that, in how the city's handling the vegetation management.
I'm trying to participate from a distance.
Your phones are real good.
Lucci will remember that, our recommendation in 2000 was the one that you guys have been calling the ban.
Yep, that's it. And then discuss street payment plan to finish Warren District 2 before proceeding with payments on Old Bisbee Council District 1. No action. Paving plan discussed. Old Bisbee streets will be paved since they are in a very bad shape. And we're going to be discussing that member comments, staff comments, net meetings in September 28th. Meeting adjourned. Are there any additions or corrections to this meeting?
No.
Okay, the minutes are, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved as read. And this is for staff. Okay, we got through the discussion on the minutes. Let's look at the, under old business, the financials. Yeah. In our pre-agenda meeting, we had a discussion on the financials, and we were looking at, there were a couple of very good months, and we understand that what is reported on the sales tax is a month late. In other words, it was, so the June 7th, 2017 is the one that I focused upon, and that was for the sales tax that came in May. And we had a very good result. You can see it's the highest month ever since we've been reporting on this, at $71,629.22. Then in July, which was for the receipts in June, it was a very good month as well. And the rest of the months, as shown, since the beginning of the first issue of tax monies back in March of 2015, is sort of staying in within the parameters that we had originally discussed way back in 2009, upon which we based our payment plan and the years that was needed, the number of years needed to do the whole pavement. Any other comments?
Can I comment on the,
Use the microphone, please.
just wanted to comment on the herbicide issue.
Let's
Are we
see.
there yet?
No, that's number 3.
Oh.
That's
But we
next.
can, street
jump
improvement,
around.
let's go, if we're satisfied with the financials, let's go on to the street improvement program report.
Tito, will you do me a favor?
Yes,
and
sir.
Give us the, will you state the balance that we have
The balance,
Yeah, what our current balance looks like. Look at that three-way, I know.
the current balance on sales tax is $207,973.66.
Okay.
Which, the reason we have that is because we have sales tax income year-to-date or through the pardon me. You didn't like that one, huh?
The whistle in there was good.
The sales tax report, which includes sales reports through August 17th. I don't see where we have anything for September.
No, not yet. She,
Not yet?
A couple, they should be here any day. Lorena was,
Any day now? Okay.
yeah, she thought she'd get them by today. She didn't.
Yeah, that's what she said.
Yeah.
But sales tax, we have had a total disbursement to us, city staff and the public works of $1,761,849.80. And the invoices that been spent is $1,553,876.14, leaving the balance that you requested, Andy, of $209,973.66.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the financials? If everybody is satisfied there, we'll go on. Now we'll go to the vegetation encroachment control update. We'll start with Peter,
Okay.
please.
Peter von Gundlach, yes. I listened to the presentation on Chuck Alton's radio station where he and David Smith he had interviewed David Smith regarding a number of topics that were of concern to the city, and the one that I noticed that I felt wasn't properly being addressed was regarding the grass growing through the streets. So shortly thereafter, I spoke with Chuck, and I invited him to come over to the house, and I gave him a demonstration to show him what exactly the problem was, because it was being, as far as I was concerned, being misrepresented. Now, my street was installed about a year ago, and at the time, my concern was naturally about the grass, which incidentally is not exclusively due to the work that we've been doing recently, because if you look at the Minder Trail and you look at Yuma Trail and you look at Black Knob, those were all the streets that were done a long time ago under the supervision of Russ McConnell. And if you look at them right now, they have grass invading all those streets. And if you can see the big clumps going right just below Jeff Harris's house. They're going right into the street completely. So anyway, my concern was that the presentation was somewhat non-committal, if not biased, against using the glyphosate. So when my street was put in, and knowing fully well that this is a problem that existed long before we started paving our streets, yet it was being presented as if it was a unique problem due to Andy's so-called lack of technical knowledge, which was not true, because I don't think anybody has done as much work in terms of putting together a skilled crew of people. But nevertheless, what I demonstrated to Chuck was my street, from one end of the property to the other, had no invasive grasses in it. And I had applied the glyphosate a year ago, about 4 times over a period of a month. And from that point on, there has been no repetition of grass invading. And now just below my house, which belongs to Stanhope, the grass is growing right through it. The other part of McLaren, which goes north but downhill, the people have no interest in taking care of that issue. They want us to fix the streets, apparently, because there's grass growing right through the streets at that point. So what I'm stating is that I believe that the glyphosate issue has been blown out of proportion, because it seems to me, based on my own experience, that an intense application immediately after the application of the asphalt seems to have solved the problem for me. And so I don't have grass coming in through the edges or any other place on on my street. And so it's a question of personal responsibility as far as I'm concerned, people having enough interest in preserving the streets by taking care of the problem in front of their house. That's my solution, based on my own experience. Thank you.
I have one comment to make about Yuma Trail.
About which?
Yuma Trail, where I live,
Yeah.
where Jeff lives.
Yeah.
That was done umpteen years ago, but it was chip sealed.
Yes.
And where the grass is going up there is where the city cleaned the ditch. They have that drainage ditch.
Uh-huh.
And the blade caught that road and tore that out, and that's why the grass is growing there.
No, those are holes that you're right, but they were holes done by the backhoe stabilizers when they had a backhoe in there cleaning that ditch out in front of a little bit up the hill from Jeff's house with Elizabeth. And that's where they were concerned because they were getting flooded from that hill and the
Yes.
water was running into their
Yes.
driveway.
But the reason the grass is there is because they dug the hole, the pothole.
I understand that, but that's not where I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jeff's side of the street.
Yeah, good.
So am I.
So we got any other comments on the vegetation control?
I'd like to make a comment
Go ahead,
on that.
Harry.
Okay, well, I've been thinking about this a lot. And myself and the chairman are original members of this committee, and we put in a lot of work, a lot of hours, a lot of legwork. And I have decided this, that because of the controversy over vegetation control, and there's a lot of people with a little bit of knowledge in this town that are acting like they got a lot of knowledge. But that being said, I have decided that this committee, you see, is apolitical. It was set up that way by former Mayor Jack Porter to remove politics and favoritism out of the process. We were successful. But the temptation is ever present to go back there, and we have to fight. So to stay apolitical, non-political. What I believe, this is just my personal opinion, is that the public is not going to accept what we want to do. Very well. Again, this committee, only makes recommendations based on gathered data in the field. That's what we do. If the public does not want vegetation control, and we have considered everything, I mean everything, we have talked and talked and talked, hashed it out, this, that, everything. And it's down to, if the public will not accept this, then they have got to accept the fact that a street that was overlaid and with a design of 20-year service life, if they don't want vegetation control, they're gonna have to accept the fact that 20-year street is gonna get them 7 to 10 at the best. If they're willing to accept that, because it's their money, it's their street, it belongs to them, not to us. Although we are citizens too, it's up to them. It's their money. They're the ones. So there you go. The committee has no power to force anyone to do anything. That's it. So the public has got to know that. They have got to be made aware of that. And all this saying that the construction procedures were not done properly is not adequate. That's not true. It was done right. We've got a lot of expertise sitting on this committee, and our work was right and was done as best we can with what we have. So that's the public's choice. It's their capital investment. That's what they've got to learn, and the decision is theirs. It's not ours.
Mr. Chairman, is it possible for me to speak again on this?
Oh, by all means, yes. Mr. Gregory wants to speak again,
I
yeah.
didn't want to do it, but.
You have to, you
Just
have
said
to.
they have to. Come on, say something.
Yeah, this is good.
Thank you. Larry, I don't disagree with almost everything you said. The one thing that I would add, and again, my expertise is not in road building, you know, my expertise is in toxic substances. You know, I was the hazardous materials coordinator for the county. I spent 10 years as an environmental activist doing all kinds of stuff all the way to the UN writing treaties. I think what the public, and again, I'm only one person speaking here, but I've talked to a lot of them. And in fact, it was people here in town in this area who asked me to come in and get involved with this issue. I've been retired, and I wanted to be retired, and I hope to be retired again, right? But
Lots of luck.
yeah, right. Anyway, I think what the public is saying is not an either or. They want both. They want good roads, and well, I'm not sure that's true. One of the issues that has become very clear to me in going over everything that I've read, that you guys have done, that other committees have done, talking to individuals who've been involved, is that in fact alternatives do exist that are viable, that do not cause cancer, right? There are a lot of possible alternatives, especially if what you're mostly concerned about is the edges of the roads, as Andy says, and I think that is the main problem.
Let me answer your question.
Give him the microphone, please.
Hey, let me answer your question, and here it is. If somebody knows something we don't know, tell us about it. But back it up with numbers and facts and science based on the physical laws of nature, not some voodoo boogie-woogie jive,
I understand.
okay?
I understand.
That's all we're saying.
I started
If
out
you know-
college as a
if-
physics major, Larry. I agree with you
Well,
100%.
okay, well, if somebody knows something that we don't know, we don't play I've got a secret, get down here, tell us, tell him,
That's
him,
who's-
and join the party.
I think people
Don't
have-
grind your teeth and blow smoke out your ears and say, what's going on?
I agree with you.
Okay.
And I think the people, at least people I've talked to, have been talking to Andy. Some of these people, he's been getting a lot of information over the web, I know, that people are sending him. For instance, today I just got an email from one of the public who's been in touch with you a lot. She came down with a new procedure being used in Northern Europe, which I had never heard of, in which this company, a fairly big company, is treating weeds with hot water and sugar. It's not going to kill Bermuda grass, but it's killing other weeds, and it's totally, safe. I had suggested to Andy and other people, and Andy, I think I was told that you were interested in looking at this and further. A lot of places have used steam, both as a pre-treatment before the asphalt is laid, and in going back over and killing the asphalt. If it will go down only a few inches, obviously, in the aggregate. Sometimes they're doing steam with shaken up aggregate, so it'll get down deeper. I've watched it used in fields in California, where they go through with tractors with these big booms behind it, just like they used to spray pesticides, but they're steaming the field to kill the weeds before the strawberries come up.
One of the things, I am getting a lot of information, I want you to know, and I'm getting a lot of good information. This is one of the things that I've been saying is that we don't really have so there's two ways to kill weeds. And Peter talked about a way that has killed the weeds permanently. In other words, they're not coming back after you spray. The other alternatives I've been getting means that I have to go out every year and spray again, or I have to treat a road edge again. So one of my things has been that we just don't have the wherewithal to go out and treat 40 miles of roads. And this is where we're going to be with this. And within 4 or 5 years, we will have paved about 40 miles of roads. I can't in 1 year actually go out and treat all those edges of road year after year after year. And I admitted that from the very beginning, that the resources it would take to use spray or steam or these other things every year for the rest of my career at the city, it won't happen. For me, sweeping roads is almost more important than me spending, and I can do that quicker than I can run around town and kill weeds. But because the other solutions only last that year, there's not a long-term solution. That's why I acquiesce to the reality that if I can't spray a glyphosate product that can, and if I have to spray more than a couple times in the next couple of years, that it really just isn't worth it. The expense of us going out year after year, or the manpower that it would take year after year for me to cover all these roads, it just isn't going to happen. So I was willing to walk away from this and say, look, I can't pre-treat. I understand that. I'm gonna put these streets down. We are gonna have an edge of road problem, but I looked at the steam, which is really promising. But the equipment to do it and the time it takes, that's where I got in trouble, Michael. Is that I can honestly tell you that the first thing I want to do here is get the roads paved. And if I stop paving roads, I could start treating weeds. But I just did, with 4 guys, I couldn't do both. And so I had made it very clear. I read your stuff, and I've said to everybody here, I will never put an employee in harm's way when it comes to weed killer. I actually went out to my employees and said, how do you guys feel about spraying the roads with Roundup? And they go, I don't have a problem with it. I said, you don't even know what's in it. They go, well, everybody does it. All right, I have another issue, and that is that I won't give people something that's toxic and then have them go out unwittingly spraying or taking off their mask or not washing their hands. I've made it really clear to everybody, I won't have a city employee under my watch use anything that's gonna harm them or their future, especially a weed killer. I'd live with the weeds first, Michael. And that is where I got to with this, I want you to know. Because I had read your information and I disagree with it.
I have a weed killer that kills it permanently, grass, in the street, in the concrete, and it is just plain old table salt and apple cider vinegar, and that sucker doesn't come back.
Lucci, I think that salt application and along with some other substance has been addressed several times, but I'll let Andy explain it one more time.
Well, when Stephen Day did his research, one of the things he found out that one of the worst things, and here we are, we're trying to figure out how to do this, right? Stephen Day came to us and said, oh, the worst thing you can do is do salt, the salted earth. Well, I'm with you. Why? It's not toxic to put down.
No, it's
Well,
not
now, there are
either.
some issues with salt on asphalt because, as you know, salt dries asphalt out. And once it gets underneath it under the crack, then it starts to dry out the asphalt. It's the natural salts that quite often cause that alligatoring and those little white lines that you'll see in asphalt where it doesn't really make sense, but that's usually the natural salts. We tend to have a lot in Warren more than we do other places. But the other thing that Lucci did, and it's interestingly enough, the city of LA's been doing it, but they're spraying bleach.
Right.
Right on the city streets. They're spraying them. I mean, they're doing it to kill another thing, but they found out it's killing the weeds too, right?
That's right.
So what we had to decide is out of the least harmful to our employees, what's the next best least harmful thing to our environment? And it got in such a bind, and that this was the deal. We never recommended, this committee never said, or the council rather, never said, we want to start spraying. They tasked us with finding out if there was an alternative, if what the best was. And so all the committee was doing was trying to figure out what the best alternative was.
Right.
And they've been, the committee's been completely open to whatever happened. And we, in fact, have, as a group, city worker and committee, we are not pushing, we have never pushed the spraying of Roundup as our only alternative.
Again, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is with the city of Bisbee and Public Works is there is no money. And the Public Works Director and his employees, use the old military saying, have been doing so much with so little for so long, they are now qualified to do anything with nothing.
Right. Right.
Andy can't pave a street unless he pulls a guy out of the water treatment plant
And sanitation.
and sanitation.
Right.
That's how bad they are. And so what we have done is tried again, considered the individual taxpayer and their capital investment. what the committee has recommended is going to get them the most value for their money. Again, that's how we feel according to our data. Again, it's their choice, and if, so again, somebody has got an alternative, we want to know about it, we want to see the data, and then we'll discuss it. We're open to anything. But again, people have to understand, there is no money. The only thing that's allowed the Public Works to switch from IGA with the county and chip seal to paving, the main factor is that the price of a barrel of oil went down $100.
Yeah.
That dropped the price of aggregate asphalt down at the source where we could afford it and actually give the taxpayer more money for his capital investment. And that's what we're always looking to do, is get it done as cheap as we can, but still meet the MAG standards. That's our mantra. That's our life. So that's all I just want to say, is there ain't no money. Always consider that when you got an alternative or an idea.
If I can get these roads, if I can get our 45 miles of roads paved in 5 years, and we're going to be really close to that, in that 5 years, I don't personally believe that we will have totally lost anything due to grass. We will have spot areas that will be damaged and we'll have to go back to. At that point, and this has been something that's dogged us at Public Works ever since I've worked at the city, we've never been in a position where we could actually move forward with a maintenance plan. All we've ever done is crisis. And if the citizens really had their way, I'd be paving a road over here, then I'd be doing one over there, then I'd come back over here, then I'd go over there. And we had to put our foot down and go, look, we just need to finish. And then once we finish, we can go back and address these maintenance issues, which will be the grass. I will be freed up in about 2 years to really start looking at this weed control issue, because what we'll really know at the end of this 5 years is how bad it really was. And there's going to be a few areas where it's going to be really bad. But the majority of it's not going to be very bad. There's going to be some really isolated areas. And now we're just at maintenance. Now I can really talk to you about, everybody about, look, we found something we want to spray and I have to do it once every other year. I'll have the time to actually make that a maintenance schedule. Brushing roads and sweeping them it goes a long way to keep grass off your edge of road and out of your gutter pan. So once we get to a point where I can actually sweep the roads every week or brush them every couple of weeks, that will also help our situation. But first I got to get these roads paved. Okay.
You know, I don't have a problem with that at all, Andy. I would note that something you said earlier is one of the major concerns that I have heard, and I share with what I've heard, and that is the need to do it once and not again. Nothing does that. Your roads have been good for a year. Maybe they won't be good next year. My experience, I worked on county roads up in Apache County for a while. Not my favorite job, but I did it for a while. And of course, back then, glyphosate wasn't even out there. You know, they were putting down some nasty stuff that they don't even allow anymore, right? But what I have found, one of the things I have found out is that almost anything you use requires maintenance.
Yeah.
You got to go back.
Yeah.
I mentioned Highway 80. You guys brought that up at a meeting some time ago about the new stuff came out by Youngbloods, right? Right after they paved the road. It's growing in the middle of the road. I live out in the county. When they put in new roads like Double Adobe Road, they go back at least once a year and spray along the sides of the roads, because it's the only thing they can do to control it. You've got to do repeats, even if you're using glyphosate. You've got to go. It's a maintenance issue. One of the big points that we made in the IPM plan that I authored back in the year 2000 for the city was integrated pest management tries to get rid of military terminology. We're not looking at extermination. We're not looking at extinction. We're looking at maintenance, management. Okay?
Right, we do use those big words.
We do.
Right, right. It would be great if it could happen with the things you don't like, right? Like Bermuda grass in the street.
Yeah, or various kinds of
But,
bacteria.
but just getting to the maintenance level would be something that I just can't wait to be there in my career at the city. Don't know, but I agree with you. Since there is nothing to spray, one time kill all, I've got to go back and maintain this. But I got to get to the point where I can actually afford and then do the maintenance.
Right.
And we're close. We're halfway there. I want you to know. Okay.
Good. Lucia, you mentioned salt. Let me just say something about that. Stephen said this to you before, and I think it's very true. One of the big problems with salt is it is a scorching the earth policy. When you, like we know this from Roman times. Rome went into Carthage and salted the ground. Nothing grew there for 1,000 years. You've got to be real careful with salt.
If it be 1,000, then maybe I won't have any grass come up my driveway.
Maybe. If it would only stay in your driveway, that may not be a problem. If it would only stay in the roads, that may not be a problem. The problem is you can't spray anything in the environment without it spreading.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. Don't go away. We already indoctrinated to you here. You're committed.
You better
You
watch
will-
out, we might make you a member of this committee. Well, you never know.
Well, we'll have you as a guest.
Yeah.
You've already graduated from the back row and up here. Thank you very much. Thank you. Your comments are really reinforcing some of the efforts that we have discussed here over and over again. I appreciate that very much. And some of the comments that have been made, I'll go back, and now we're getting into new business, which is a reminder, official versus non-official comments and discussions. Larry Phillips earlier mentioned that we are an apolitical committee, which is true. We do not get into it. We try not to. We don't want to get into politics. But this is a reminder to us on the committee that we do not represent the city. None of the discussions that we have ever had is meant to represent the city as such. We don't represent necessarily that we know it all. And so as we speak, and this is a reminder to our committee, as we speak principally for ourselves until such time that as a committee as a whole, we have something to speak about, and we speak from there as a recommendation to mayor and council. So anything else, and this comes about as a reminder to us, because I think some of us in the committee, as a result of trying to be helpful and educate wherever education is required about the process and what we're doing, somebody may have taken that as the official city position, which is not. Nobody has spoken as the official representative of the city on whatever the efforts have been. And so, and I was reminded that for the city, nobody on this committee speaks for the city. We recommend to the city through staff liaison. We have two liaisons. One's a council liaison. The other one is a staff liaison. We speak through them to the mayor and council. And the other one is that if the committee wants to make a statement, it has been discussed and decided that they would push me into that spot. I may be reluctant, but I'll take on that responsibility as long as I'm the chair to speak for the committee. And then again, I would speak for the committee. And if it has anything to do with policy and procedure for the city and so forth, we have no say in that policy. We would make recommendations, but we do not enforce policy. We leave that up to somebody else. So that being the case, I'm going to pass now on to equipment purchases for Public Works paving plan. You have one more comment?
I
Larry?
have can we go to item number 2 on old business, street improvement program report real quick?
Yeah.
Just get an update from Andy, where are we at in old biz?
All right, we are on Moon Canyon. We've, as you know, we through a settlement with K&G, we did Laundry Hill and Adams. So that section of Moon that just before it makes the switch back to go to Adams, we have prepped it. It was a lot of prep. Arizona Water has laid their water lines really shallow. And what they did is they went and poured concrete over them. So, and at the time when it was done, the concrete, not only did the Arizona Water do it, but homeowners have done it as well. They've poured that slurry and they're very sloppily. And there's not a smooth edge. And they've trenched it across the street. And there are these concrete mounds that now that I've broken up all this bad asphalt and got to it. So, anyway, I actually had Raul take that street down a little further than we normally go. I've taken it down 3 inches. I want the asphalt to meet the concrete drainage way that's in the middle of the road. I didn't want you to have a bump between the asphalt and the concrete. I wanted it at grade. So it took 2 weeks to prep a very small road. But when we're done, the face of that road is going to be really, really beautiful. We went up to, before we went to Boone Canyon, we did Spring Canyon. We took out 18 dump trucks of silt. We found a wall we didn't know existed, about 3 feet under the grade. On the edge of road, as we were cleaning out the drainage, we kept hitting something, and we found the most beautiful wall. Lucci, they're even prettier than the ones on Black Knob View. It's just a gorgeous wall. Yeah, it's got a cap on the top. It's gorgeous. And since it was covered up with so much silt, it's all rock. It's all rock done.
WPA.
And since it was under so many layers of silt for so many years, it's been preserved beautifully. Anyway, it's all exposed. I also found we've always had a drainage problem on Spring Canyon, and the water always runs down the road under the underpass and then down onto Tombstone Canyon. It's been when the winter comes and the rain comes, there's always mud and ice. What we found was we uncovered the drainage all the way from the top of Spring Canyon where it crosses the road, shoots into a private retaining wall, crosses the road again, and we found the ditch the culvert that it goes to. And so Matt burned himself pretty bad on the concrete. But we re-engineered some of that drainage way. If you guys haven't been up to look, as you drive up Spring Canyon right after the overpass on your right-hand side, all that concrete work is new. So what was happening, the water was, now after we got it all cleared out, we saw where the water for years had crossed the road and it had hit a wall. What I can't decide on that other wall is I believe, without committing myself too far, that was a WPA wall. That water was intended to hit that wall. Over the years, people put their private walls on top of that wall. So as the water kept running down, what we did notice is they didn't concrete in the bed of that drainage way. And one thing I can tell you about WPA work is wherever there was a drainage way, there's 9 inches of concrete. So for some reason, they didn't concrete it there, and I think part of it's because Spring Canyon doesn't flood regularly. It's hit or miss up there with the way it floods. The rain has to actually happen over that part of the canyon. It usually happens on the other side. Anyway, it's been I encourage you to go look at it. We found the old culvert. We've dug it all out. We've cleaned it all up. It's quite beautiful. In fact, it was at a point on that road where I wouldn't even drive a city truck. And I've been driving up that road a couple times a week just because I can't believe how fast and smooth coming down is. And it's a little too fast. All right. At one point, as you know, we did all the Sims roads, and there's a lot of Sims road in this town. Sims Road runs from one side of the highway and down 2 other sections.
There's a new spot you're gonna do, huh?
No, I'm done with Sims Road, I want you to know. But Tito, that area across, up Wood Canyon, we did I can't remember the name of the road. It's, as you come off out of the tunnel, it's the road you can take to come up over, and you come down by that.
Yeah.
Compton, all right.
Compton.
So we did Compton.
It did well.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well. There's a section to Compton that I have since found, I believe is our road, and we didn't do. I don't know that I'm going back, but across the street from Compton is a neighborhood, and our old city attorney lives on that road. Originally, the neighbors told me they didn't want to do that road. There's been a,
Okay, now we know, that's the other Sims Road.
yes,
Yes, uh-huh.
that's the other Sims Road. Okay, so, we've been back to the neighborhood and we've talked, do you want your road paved or not? Because I will tell you that in the middle of doing all this, there have been several neighborhoods where one neighborhood on one of the Sims Road, we found a city parking lot we didn't know we owned. So, at Lucci, it's been there for 60 years. I didn't even know it was there. I knew the lot was there, but I didn't know it was mine. Anyway, what we're finding in the neighborhoods is that people don't want the parking lots paved. And to tell you the truth, I'm okay with that. So we're putting down a large driveway gravel. And you guys, I got to tell you, we don't have to pave everything. And when the neighbors come out and talk about the heat and the water runoff, they're not wrong. A way to prevent a lot of sheeting off roads is just not to asphalt everything. So some of those upper sections are very deeply gravelled. The neighbors asked for it. So that's kind of what was going on in that hidden part of Sims. But the neighbors have come to me and they want it paved. So although I'm already down the road to Moon, and I won't be able to pave Moon Canyon until next Tuesday or Wednesday, there's a problem with the batch plant. Now I have to go back up and do that other section of Sims before I get down to Opera. So it's gonna put me behind a little bit. But anyway, that's where we're at with it.
Is our target date of first of the year out of there?
I'm coming out, Larry. Whatever I'm not done with, I have to come back and do. The truth is, in Old Bisbee, you guys, and we've talked about this, I was afraid Old Bisbee wasn't gonna get any pavement, because when we originally did the plan, there wasn't enough money to finish everything. So what I did is I jumped the gun and I did the short streets early. Pearly, all those, so those were done now. Those were on year,
Higgins-
yeah,
Higgins Hill and all
yeah.
that.
Those were all on year 7 of the plan. They're done. So the truth is, when we leave Old Bisbee in January, if I left Old Bisbee today, I can honestly tell you that about 80% of Old Bisbee's been repaved. But our goal is to be out of Old Bisbee by the first of the year, and that will include a sidewalk project that's gonna be coming up and smacking me in the face here in 60 days.
Which one is that?
The convention center, I believe, will be issuing a statement very soon. I don't know if you know this or not, but the sidewalk in front of the convention center is privately owned. The city does not own that sidewalk. All of the buildings that all these buildings that PD owned, when they gave them to the city, they didn't give the sidewalks, even the big house at the end of the vista. That property is owned to the back of the curb. And it's only those PD buildings that they did that with. So there is a plan afoot for them to close their sidewalk and put cafe dining and other things on their sidewalk. They have every right to do it. That means we have to provide a sidewalk, and that would be in front of the convention center, in front of the current sidewalk. So I would have to put a 5-foot sidewalk in front of that. And what we're talking about is that they'll give us additional parking back in their lot to make up for the 6 parking spots I would lose.
Are we
that's a good
talking
trade-off.
about the front entrance or the side entrance?
Both. Lucci would wrap all the way around. They own all that sidewalk. We don't own any of it. It's all private, and they pay taxes on that. It's theirs
Are we
squarely.
gonna be down to 1 lane?
No,
No.
but we'll be, if I put more parking on it, we will be. But they're gonna give us the parking, they're gonna make up for the parking. It'll be a nice addition down there, but when
Now,
they make,
is
once
that-
they
is
make
that-
that statement, I got,
Is that trade gonna be documented correctly?
we're not going anywhere until they document everything. And I'm giving you
In writing.
preliminary information
Right.
without having any facts or any document in my hand.
Mhm.
But part of the negotiation process has been, we'll need to make up for that parking, and they've been very willing to make up for that parking.
Let me ask a question. Since there is about 14 or 18, I don't know how many committees there are, and one of them is community development,
Yeah.
are they getting involved with that one?
So last week, community development and transportation both got thrown into public works. So
They're involved now?
they're involved now.
Thank you.
They gave us more to do. Because Lucci's not happy with it, because I told us it's gonna be 18 months before I can get to the cemetery. I got 2 more things to do, Lucci, so. Anyway, yes, and so the beauty of that is it brings the building inspector and all that we're now one voice instead of running across the hall to talk. We'll still be running across the hall, but, so we're there, and the traffic islands in Old Bisbee, right now I'm, Arizona Water, I need to put water on those islands. Arizona Water won't let me do the work. I am going up Monday to meet with them. They want like $3,800. They want to go out to bid and hire a private contractor. They don't want to let me put in the water connection. They want to go to private bid. So I'm going to Phoenix on Monday to talk to the president of the company and Fred and see, and ask what we can do so I can save the $3,700. Just let me dig the hole and put in the water, but their policy is not to do that, so I'm going.
Don't we have to go out for bid for that?
I can't even go out to bid. They want to go out to bid and hire a private contractor to put in a water meter.
Why don't, Andy, we have a local utilities meeting,
Yep.
and with the agreement from the county, from the committee here, I would say, see if they will do the connection, you do the digging. And you're responsible for the trench and also for the paving.
Tito, it got to a point where I hit such a big stone wall, I made a meeting for next Monday with the president of Arizona Water to go up to Phoenix and ask him just that. Frank can't act outside of the rules. He has to work, he's governed by right here in town. So I'm gonna do just that. Why can't you just let me get in there? I can dig it in a couple hours and have it connected. So I've got to go to the president of the company and see if I can get an exception. That's exactly what I'm gonna do on Monday. I'm gonna drive up to Phoenix, meet with Fred and the president of the company and have lunch, and we're gonna sit down and see what I can get worked out on this. So that's where we're at right now.
Thank you.
But we are leaving Old Bisbee come the first, whatever isn't done, it just isn't gonna be done. They're gonna have to wait till next year.
Well, we've discussed the scheduling time and again, and we know we have, thank goodness we have time to meet with your schedule
Yeah,
when you change from one to the other, so.
okay.
Larry, are you satisfied with the report?
I am, very much so. Yes, I am.
Moving on, equipment purchases for Public Works Plan.
You want me to go on this one?
Yes.
So we are in the middle of going to bid, or not going to bid, I'm sorry. We are collecting informal prices right now on, what's happened is that the roads that Cochise County chip sealed in the last 5 years, it's time to put coatings over those. It's time to put the, what do you call them?
Seal?
Ah, thank you, the seal coats.
Seal
Yeah,
coat.
or the fog seals. So, this is where we're at with this. I'm gonna price out this first round of seal coat. We'll be working over in San Jose and up by the neighborhood by the cemetery,
Saginaw,
Saginaw.
Saginaw. Saginaw's road should have been fog sealed
a long time.
4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
So I'm gonna get the prices on that. What we're looking at here is that once I get these prices, and they're gonna be expensive but not expensive. They're gonna be anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000 a neighborhood.
Now,
What-
is this a departure from your idea of buying equipment?
No. What I'm gonna prove here, Tito, and it's at all of our expense, but I gotta have some of this done straight away. We're gonna do those neighborhoods, and then we're gonna come back and say, I'm gonna say to you guys, all right, you guys, to do this many miles of roads, I've gotta pay this much every 5 years. It's time for us to look seriously at an oil tanker, 1,000-gallon tanker. So the way the product works is they want you to use a minimum of 2,000 gallons of product per spray. With the last spray we did Bisbee Road and Arizona Street because I needed to come up with that 2,000 gallons. And we did the fire department and we did some other parking lots in town. What I'm going to be able to show to the committee and the citizens of Bisbee after we contract out on state contracting, which will be a decent price, and we're using a product that, by the way, Western Emulsion wants us to use a brand new product. They're giving me a really good deal this time to use a medium product. It's something that they've just developed. Tony Paez has been working on this for years. So that's what we're gonna use in this next fog seal. But I'll be able to tell you all exactly why we need to go out and buy a tanker and do this ourselves. And just like asphalting streets, some people didn't think this was gonna happen, but we've proved that it's cheaper for us to buy the equipment and do it ourselves. And I wanna get these other streets done, but I'll be able to give a good, fair, honest cost analysis on why it's a better idea for us to buy the truck. We're looking at the trucks in a couple different ways right now. We are looking at possibly buying a used chassis from Freightliner and putting a new tanker on top. And we're also looking in the municipal web pages to find used tankers that don't have a lot of hours on the engines, on the truck motor. And what we're kind of finding is that the tankers themselves and that equipment, they hold up for a lot longer than a motor on the truck. So we have found some good used equipment, but it still isn't cheap. But I really want to look at this carefully.
How many gallons?
1,000 gallons, Peter.
Isn't there one over in Benson that's on the highway for sale?
Is it a heated tank oil spreader?
No.
What I need, Peter, is I actually need a tank that has a burner system underneath it with the sprayer bars back that I can apply. Now, Peter, what's interesting about this is that not all those emulsions are hot. Well, the emulsion we put out here was a cold emulsion, and we tried that as a cold emulsion. I still want to try some hot emulsions because we have the ability now to see which one of these is going to hold up best for us.
Have you looked at Craigslist heavy equipment?
Yeah, Peter, and that's where we found our first truck. But it's in Texas, and a lot of that stuff is in Texas. Now, we've done this before. We found our boom truck. It came from the city of Dallas. They brought it up to Scottsdale, and that's where we tested it, and that's where we looked at it. But yeah, we're looking, Peter. They're anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000 used. They're anywhere from $300,000 to $400,000 new.
Huh.
They're pretty expensive.
Wow. Were those tanks, those heated tanks?
Yeah, well, you know that Vector truck, we got the smallest VATCon truck because we couldn't use a big one, but that was $277,000 new. So this equipment's pretty pricey.
Don't forget Ritchie Brothers auction. You might find.
We've been to Ritchie Brothers auction. We're going to all those. That's why what I'm telling you today is that what we think we might end up doing is going to Freightliner and buying a chassis with a motor with low miles on it, low time on it, and then having a brand new tank put on the back.
Tanks.
It would have to be, even if we bought it new, it would be built that way. Just like the VATCon, Freightliner or some company or Volvo sends you down a truck chassis and then you apply your technology on that chassis.
You might be able to find if you're gonna have a tank fabbed, or try to find one already made.
No, if we're gonna do the tank, Larry, we should do the tank and all that stuff brand new. We should get a brand new one.
Well, if you're gonna have what I'm getting at is I don't know any fabrication places, shops south of Tucson that has the ability to manufacture a new tank.
No, you're right. We would have to actually buy it, and it looks like a lot of this equipment now is coming out of Florida, or Louisiana, or those states. Yeah, and that's where our VATCon came from. It comes from Florida. What Freightliner does is any piece of equipment that they add something on their chassis, they strictly do it in Florida.
Okay,
That-
so we're gonna get some more.
Well,
Is this the only equipment you're contemplating right now? The tank?
I'm
For the seal coat?
I'm looking for a larger roller,
Mm-hmm.
because I believe that once we hit the rest of Warren, Tito was right. I was overly cautious. Should have bought the bigger roller.
Wobbly wheel also?
Huh?
You have a wobbly wheel,
I do. Right now, we've leased it to
Douglas?
Douglas along with our blade, but I want the next size roller up, Tito. You kept telling me to get it, and I was being cheap and didn't want to spend the money. I know I should have got it, but anyway, now we have to go back and find it. As far as big equipment goes, we got a lawnmower for parks. We got a $11,000 John Deere mower for $4,000, brand new. It was delivered from Stotz John Deere out of Tucson. We found it through Lowe's. I had no idea that they were going directly to the local dealers and buying the equipment. The dealer delivered the lawnmower, and I have to tell you, I was pretty shocked when they said you have a 1,000-hour warranty on this mower, including oil changes. I got to take it to Tucson for it, but to get a $4,000 mower, $11,000 for $4,000, and a 1,000-hour warranty. Come on, there you go. So I am actually going to look at Streets getting a second mower so that I can use it on, Warren is, would be particularly easy for me to put someone on that mower in the alleys in Warren, because the alleys in Warren are pretty safe. They're not a lot of rocks, and that thing could mow those, keep those right-of-ways mowed pretty darn good, Lucci.
And the front places where they have the flat headstones, it could do the cemetery.
It probably could too. So if we kept the deck up, she's thinking about that cemetery all the time. Anyway, I am going to be putting in a CAF to purchase another one of those mowers, and I would like Streets to purchase that mower. And I don't have to purchase that out of our street money. I can do it out of HERF. Arizona Department of Emergency Management has not as yet to reimburse the HERF funds for the retaining wall. They're telling me now that the check is coming, but that money, that reimbursement money, and I'm gonna have this conversation with finance, but it is not gonna go to the general fund. If you take money from HERF, you have to put it back. It's not the wastewater plant or sanitation. You can't go in, or even the youth fund, you can't go in and rate it and not pay it back. You've gotta pay HERF back, so,
Andy, you bring up HERF money, but
yeah.
don't you, who manages the HERF money, and we, who is the committee, don't we have an unwritten agreement that we pass and help you on the use of the HERF monies as well?
I haven't spent any money really in streets at all without talking to you guys, including that HERF money, because I thought it was better,
Yes,
since
yes.
we're streets and infrastructure, it was better for me just to bring it all through you guys. So however I've spent that money, I've included you guys on that.
I brought that out so that there wouldn't be, for the purpose of information, general information, out to whomever is listening and watching, that's the way you work and that's the way we work.
Yeah.
Since it's streets and infrastructure, we work in hand.
Yeah, and we do separate the money, I want you to know. I'd have spent it on a little more concrete, but there's a sidewalk I want built, and the guys just said, no, we're not doing that till we finish the streets. Okay, and I'm not sideways with that, because the truth is, we made a promise, we were gonna pave streets, and that's what we're doing. So we get all brought back into center, and then we go out, we pave more streets.
Okay, let's go on now. If you got the items you want to buy, or you want to buy a truck, oil truck with
Yep.
a tanker with spray bars.
Yeah,
You want a larger roller and another mower for streets.
yeah.
Mhm. Very good, thank you.
Mhm.
We're gonna go on now, because I think we're running a bit over time, but that's okay. We're getting some good business done here. No, nobody's fault there. Tin Town Streets Improvement Grant Concerns. I'm gonna let Larry take this one here. Larry?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just kind of went over this the other day, the chairman and I, and kind of like to know, well, number one, as the prime contractor actually visited the job site yet.
No, well, we haven't gone to bid.
We haven't gone to.
No, we haven't gone to, we should go to bid in the end of October.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought that the prime had already been selected.
No, the engineer had been selected.
Well, the engineer, that's what I mean.
Yeah, yes, the engineer
Okay,
has been.
I'm calling him, the guys from Safford, the prime.
Okay.
Here's
Okay,
the engineer.
okay, have they visited the job site yet?
Oh, yeah, they've been up 3 times.
Okay, well, would,
50%?
Actually, we are at 95.
okay, because,
Who has reviewed that?
I mean,
What in Safford?
Lucci, the engineering firm that was selected to do Tin Town is out of Safford.
Ooh,
I don't.
Oh, God, I have to look at
Okay.
that.
I-
That was just-
I can't think of who.
I can't think of who it is, but you'll probably know who it is. That's why, because Lucci worked up with.
Well,
the-
we were just, was hoping that when there are, maybe we can wait till the prime gets out there. And,
You can see the plans if you'd like to see
well,
them.
that's the plan, just kind of like to walk through it with them, you know, so if they're ever coming back to the job site.
Yeah, they'll come back. They're the engineer. They'll come back. If you guys want to do a walkthrough with them.
Talk timeline to see whether we have a chance to see it before bids go out.
Yeah, we would like to talk to them before the bids go out, just to be there for information.
So just do me a favor on, Monday I have to go to Phoenix.
Yeah,
Lorena doesn't work tomorrow.
okay.
Call on Monday and let's get an appointment set up with Bonnie at Seago to get the engineer out here for another walkthrough.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll try to remember.
And I'll work on it too, but if we, all of us try and remember it, we might even get
Okay,
it.
because
Yeah.
what we would just, and another question is on the location of the pond. I've actually been talking to people out there, and in order to get the money for the project, we've got to accept the pond no matter what, right?
It has to have a detention pond. It can't work
At the
without it.
location,
Yes, at that location.
At that location.
There just aren't any other alternatives.
Yeah, well, and then we're wondering what is the effect gonna be on the greenhouse that's going up?
There'd be no effect on the greenhouse that's going up.
He
No, the green.
won't get anything directed right at him.
No, I don't even know how that came up. I don't even know how that'd be possible. I'd literally have to put it in a truck, bring it over and hose them
Okay,
down.
well, that's what we were wondering.
Where the old
We were
Wholesome
wanting to
Bakery,
make
where the old
sure.
Wholesome Bread Shop was there, as you go into Tin Town on your left. That-
Oh, okay.
And they're putting a greenhouse up there, Lucci.
Okay.
It's at the highest point in Tin Town.
Right,
There is no other building at that high level, and the road is far enough behind them that when I heard that somebody said it was gonna flood, I went, well, the road, if that happens, we really screwed up because it's never really flooded there. And if I put in a road and now it does flood, everything we tried to do is wrong. But-
well, we'd
No,
rather ask questions before.
Yeah, no, I
rather
gotcha.
than after, so that's
But
all.
the detention pond, that was determined by two different engineers. The initial engineering firm that took out a grant to get the job and didn't get it, they worked with Tom really closely, and we spent a lot of time. The city doesn't own any land around Tin Town. Tin Town is a locked-in, with like, 10 feet outside your back door, if you're on the edge, that's all Freeport land. So what we had to do is come up with a plan and be able to go to Freeport and get that land. So that's why they came up with this. And again, I remind everybody, the runoff that's affecting Tin Town comes from the fire station and Upper Briggs, and then it crosses the road and sheets across the road. To be perfectly honest with you guys, and we've had this conversation, this is an ADOT problem that we're addressing.
All right.
I want you to know that, so.
And, the one concern is that are gonna use the streets to channel water off. Is the last guy in town on the west end, is he gonna end up with a whole lot of water coming at him?
The last guy on town on the west end, every time there's a flood, since I've worked at the city, calls us and says, I'm on the couch in my living room, the water is up to my couch. His septic tank was underneath his living room floor.
Yeah,
He is one of the sweetest, kindest old guys I ever met in my life. They went to Tin Town. They got a bunch of scrap lumber almost. They built their house on the dirt. I believe the reason the living room is on the floor, because as the house got bigger, that was the area they needed. This whole project, this whole point to go into Tin Town was to help that guy not to be flooded anymore. He will be flooded until I finish the project. I mean, I go out there and sandbag, we dig trenches, the detention basin, the whole point of that detention basin is to hold that water back from flooding this poor old guy in his house. So that basin,
that is good.
if I can,
Really
if I,
glad to hear
if
that.
I can catch that water in that basin and then meter it out a little slower, then the roads don't become swamped. What is gonna be affected negatively is that, as we thought about it, and Cato Daly and I sat down and talked about this, the grant to build the community garden, part of that was, we were basing that grant on is we were gonna collect the rainwater, right? Well, we thought about it, and are we gonna collect rainwater off of a highway and then water food with it? Wasn't a good idea. So,
Especially if you use glyphosate.
it's the only lot in town that doesn't have weeds on it, happens to be that lot. But the water runs, so it washes it all out, so the weeds don't even have a chance to grow. But, that isn't gonna work, that isn't practical. So we are gonna figure out how to use that space as a garden in another way, but the truth is, I don't think saving rainwater off of a highway is a good way to build a community garden. I don't wanna take the poorest people in town and then give them poison water to plant their food, it seems wrong all the way
Well,
around.
I think you know what our concerns are now, and
Yeah.
we'd like to, if nothing else, maybe get, Peter, I'm gonna include you in this. And our concern on Tin Town, I'm gonna include you in this when, you and Larry, get, an appointment to go see Siegel, so that, we address the concerns about where the floods are gonna go and, how the streets are going to actually take the water through Tin Town and out of town without flooding anybody.
What I'll do is I'll get a copy of the engineering plans first, so you can go ahead and review those, so that when we have the walk through, you can, you know, you're in a better spot, so it's not all investigation when we get out there, so. But I'll get all that together for you. I might add, since you're here and people are listening, that the nature of this committee and these people is that they won't let anything go. So if anybody thinks that this has been easy, they don't know. And the good news, I'm working with really decent people, but they don't let anything go. They follow through on everything. They'll even, after we do a road or we do a project, they go, we went out there and looked at that. Are you kidding? No, they're not.
Yeah, we even went down and looked at the drainage in, over there in San Jose.
Yeah,
That big drainage, what they put the Gambian wall, as you call
yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we went down there and we looked at it, yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I know, I know, they won't let it go. So if anybody thinks this committee's not addressing issues, they're wrong. It takes a lot of time.
I think we went through the concerns that it's gonna be continuing until we get the project done in Tin Town. And so, well, let's move on to the last item under new business is Color Code Street Maps Project 2009 versus 2017.
Yeah.
Let me open it. We looked for the color-coded map that at one time was on an easel back here, and another time, according to Lucci, was on the wall over here.
I have a copy of that. If that's what you're looking for, I have
No, I
that.
want the map,
I don't have the map.
but we're gonna make one.
Okay, all right, that's what I didn't have, okay.
Yeah, see? But this one here is the guide, and this one here, although it's not color-coded, it's still, you can still read the guidelines, and you do have a color-coded one.
Yes,
of
I do.
these.
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And we'll take this one, this is a 2009
9.
map, where we based our street inspection and our street project on. And we'll compare that and color code a new map with accomplishment at the end of 2017.
Oh, very good.
We're going to open the subject here, but we're not gonna put an end date, other than we'll shoot for the end of 2017, and hopefully we can manufacture that map and have it done the first quarter of 2018.
Okay.
And go on to member comments quickly, so we can all go home. A minute apiece if you wanna make a comment. No comments, thank you very much.
Out.
Right. Staff comments, do you have anything else, Andy?
Don't bet on slow horses.
No, that's a good one, I like that.
That's what I can give you for.
Not talking
Next
anymore.
meeting is scheduled for October
Yeah.
26th.
26.
Yeah, you'll see your agenda, it's right there at the bottom of it.
No, I have to write it big so I can put it in my books, and then I have to
Yeah.
remember my name so I can find it.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Judy Giacomino and Lucy Giacomino says, move it out. And we all approve. Say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7:23.